All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. If everyone could, if you're not speaking actively, just mute your phone just so we're not picking up the background noise. And then, of course, we're excited to have everybody participate. So today's Three-Ring Circus webinar is obviously a little more somber than most, largely because we are in unprecedented times. So the first thing I want to say before we begin is I just sincerely hope that everybody is safe and healthy. Please take all these warnings seriously. Please protect your family and your loved ones. This is uncharted waters for us all, but just a heartfelt recognition that we're all going through a hard time here together. I hope everybody is safe and continues that way. And this is tough on a lot of fronts. It's tough for us. Obviously, there's a medical issue at hand, a viral issue. There's also a fear and panic issue, which many of us, including me, are experiencing ups and downs on a daily basis. It's stressful, I know, on everybody. It's going to have long-term downstream implications. So I'm not being doomsday-ish at all. I think there's wonderful opportunity, and we will, of course, talk about that. But I just wanted us to recognize the situation that we're in, and I'm grateful for our Three-Ring Circus family, and hopefully we can all lean on each other to get through these challenging times together. Okay, well, as we dive in, what I was hoping to do today is a few things. One is just kind of give you our perspective on the situation as it currently is. Second thing is some thoughts on what we can do to make the most of this time that was unscheduled. And then, of course, we'll have an open and honest, frank dialogue, as we always do, on how we can help each other and how we can continue to drive momentum in the business. So starting out, I think everybody knows we are in the middle of this, again, unprecedented health crisis, and nobody wants to have 1,000-person meetings at the moment for obvious reasons. So this is putting a dampening factor on our businesses. My sense is, and again, I'm no medical expert, although I've been kind of a news junkie and I've spoken to many experts in the field, is that we're going to be likely locked down for quite some time. And if everyone could just please mute if you're not speaking, that'd be helpful to avoid the background noise. I know we've got a couple people just joining us. So what that means for our business is that, again, we are in unprecedented business times as well as health times. And so I think we got to probably be buckled in for the next 90 days. That I don't know that most of us will be on the stage until then. It's possible. It's possible this comes to a quicker resolution, and I certainly hope that. Obviously, it's possible the other thing that it drags out even longer. So I think that hopefully most of us have additional revenue streams and certainly hopefully some savings to get through these difficult times. I know there's going to be some government assistance, although you never want to rely on that. I know that there's a lot of discussion on it. Jordan was on a call earlier today, and as soon as we get anything concrete, we'll distribute it out on what types of, whether it's federal loan programs or assistance or bailouts or whatever. I doubt that there's going to be, direct checks cut from the federal government to high-paid speakers because we lost a gig. But on the other hand, this is going to affect a lot of people in their businesses, and to the extent that there are programs that we can participate in, we'll certainly let everybody know. And please do the same. Let's all share together. So that sucks, and I think we all just got to acknowledge it. We have a saying around the office: we always guzzle truth serum, and we're not going to hide from the fact that this is a very difficult time. That being said, I'm really encouraged to know that it's not all doom and gloom. We've had a booking or two over the last couple of days. One for July, one for the fall. I've been on multiple pre-booking calls over the last couple of days. We've had new fresh holds coming in. So I will say that from both the bureau community and the overall meeting planner community, there's certainly the expectation that this storm will pass. There's certainly the expectation that while we're going to be a bit immobilized for the next month or two, that people are actively booking engagements in the summer and fall and beyond. So, we're going to have to see what the economic fallout is. If we fall into a recession, that obviously can have implications as well. And right now, there's just frankly a lot of unknowns. But what we're seeing right now today is that the dates that have been canceled are overwhelmingly being rescheduled, not canceled, so they're being postponed. We've had a number of things like, for example, we just had an April engagement cancel, obviously, and we already rescheduled it for April of 2021. And then as well, we're having new opportunities coming in daily, and we're even booking some stuff. So I would say in the macro sense, we have a short-term period of pain, but I still remain deeply optimistic about the future. The other thing is that even if we have a contraction in the speaking industry, my personal perspective, and of course anyone may have a different one, is that most of us on this call, I believe, are still what you might describe as value speakers. So even people on the higher end of this call, like John Foley's fee or my own in the 30s, and then there's some fees that are there in the 10s or 20s here. It's still, if you're going to hold an event next year, even if we're in a recession, even if the optics are a little tough, you still need to have events with high quality professional speakers. So I think our fee ranges are going to be better served than, for example, if you are a celebrity trying to get $175,000 for a photo op. So I'm not saying there won't be fallout. I'm not saying that we won't contract a bit, but keep in mind, we have a $4 billion industry today. So even, God forbid, if there's a 25% contraction, if we go into a recessionary period for a year, that's still $3 billion for all of us to go after. And I think that many of the fee ranges and the topic areas that we cover will be the ones in good spot. The other thing I would say just about long-term, and then we'll talk about short-term, is that many of you have topics that either are existing, are a perfect fit for this crisis, or will be tangentially a fit going forward. I know we have people on the call that talk about resilience and about courage. We have people on the call that talk about having a new idea that becomes backable. We have people talk about resiliency and persistence. And so these are going to be themes that I believe will be in high demand should the economy continue to limp through and ultimately recover. So I think, again, that there's some, despite the clouds overhead, there is some real optimism. And I'm optimistic for many of the folks on this call that this could actually be, once we get through this immediate crisis, a real springboard for your business to take off. So I'm just going to pause for a second because I have some real specific thoughts on what we can do during this period right now. But before I do that, does anyone have any thoughts, questions, comments, or feedback on both the current challenges and the longer term outlook? And in this case, just unmute so we can hear you.
This is Nina. I have a business question about folks asking for their deposits back. Have you faced that, Josh? And how are you handling that when you have? I've had a few people reach out.
Yes, so we certainly have faced that. I'm sure many of the people on this call have had the same thing. Here's what we've basically done. If it's a contractual obligation, first of all, our first response, as all of us should be one of partnership and caring and support and understanding the nature and the magnitude of the situation. But at the same time, we all have businesses to run, and what we've generally done is asked that they fulfill their contractual obligation, since it at least hasn't been called a force majeure under most contracts, that they pay us in full. But that so to a degree, that contractual obligation, existing one, is fulfilled. They paid even though we didn't deliver speech, and everything's done. That being said, we are then issuing them essentially a new contract for a free speech to be delivered at a mutually agreeable date within the next 12 or 13 months. So the idea is, to keep our businesses running and such, and they do have a contractual obligation to have them pay now, but then we will give them a rain check basically at a mutually agreeable date for the future. That has worked most of the time. There's been a couple objections, but not too many. The ones that are trickier is where you had a verbal agreement or you're in the contracting process, and if there's nothing documented, most people are still saying, hey, we want to rebook this at the appropriate time, but there's a lot of loose ends that are still floating around. Cool. Any other questions or observations on the current situation or the outlook before I get into some thoughts on what we can do today? Okay. Well, we'll have plenty of time for additional Q&A. But I've been thinking about this, guys, and I'm thinking like, okay, this sucks. Obviously, we're scared for our family and our livelihood and our country and our community and all this. At the same time, what could we do now so that when we look back 12 months from now, we're saying, you know what, there was some real hardship there, and we're not minimizing that tragedy, but also this could be a professional and personal gift. So I've been asking myself this question a lot, like, what can I do now so that 12 months from now, I'm looking back and saying thank you with a deep sense of gratitude for this time, as opposed to just being a catastrophic loss. So I started thinking, what can I do now to make the best of it? And so all of us are generally grounded. We're not on airplanes. We're not doing speeches, which frees up a good amount of time. And it frees up time to do work that often takes the back seat to current fires and priorities. It's hard to do deep thinking work when we're caught in between flights, airports, and flight delays and all that. So I put together a list of things that I'm trying to focus on that I wanted to share with you in the spirit of just trying to help each other out. What can we do now so that we're happy about this hiatus 12 months from now? Here's what I'm thinking about. Things to do today. Number one, we can go deeper on our domain expertise. So if you speak about customer service, what a wonderful time to read 15 books on customer service. If your topic is creative problem solving, why not study everything that you can possibly read? Because we don't often have the chance to do that in the context of our normal busy lives. So we all know that the world wants experts that speak, not just speakers. So this is an opportunity to double down and get even better, even more equipped, even deeper in our field of study. Number two, expand our body of work. Maybe you've been waiting to launch a podcast or write that book. And this, again, is a good time because we've got this unexpected sense of time on our hands. Just personally, two things I'm actually doing. They've been long planned. It's not reactionary, but I'm getting a chance to go deeper. One is working on my new book. Again, publishing deal was signed before this process, before coronavirus, but now I've got some additional time. So I'm going super deep. I'm doing more additional research. I'm getting a more deliberate, focused time to dig in on it. And I do think the result of the book will be a better book at the end of the day because of this time. Also, again, not in reaction, but we've been working for a while on a podcast that's forthcoming. Ours is going to be called Creative Troublemakers, kind of a fun title. And so that's giving us more time to double down on the strategy, and we're working on the format, and we're experimenting with things so that upon launch, it's going to be that much better. So for you, my suggestion is whatever expression that you have of your expertise, whether it's a video series or a blog or a new book or a podcast or any other manifestation of it, now is a great time to be expanding your body of work. Number three, something that I've generally sucked at over the years and until recently, and I've got the fire lit, I'm reinventing, but it's getting deeper on social media. This is a time where we can respectfully stay top of mind, not by saying, hey, hire me as a speaker, because that's obviously tone deaf right now, but to being part of the conversation and to show compassion and to be sharing helpful things online. I know Gretchen Marsh is on the phone, and her husband, Bob, I'm not sure if he's on the phone, said something to me earlier this week, which I just loved. He's a very talented sales executive, and he said, helping is the new selling, which is just stuck with me like a tattoo. I thought it was so good. And again, on social media, not only to say, hey, look at me in a typical social media way, but maybe it's an opportunity to reach out to others and help and landed, some genuine empathy and support and compassion. I think that will actually, first of all, it's the right thing to do. But second of all, I think it will help us build not only our social footprint, but also our long-term value to those that we serve. Number four would be to enter a new genre. So if you, for example, like I never had a podcast, and so we're starting a new genre, entering a new podcast. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to explore a digital learning product. So the notion is if you've normally been focused on a certain number of focus points, now maybe it's that push, that time that we could expand into something new that we'll be grateful for at the end of this current crisis. Number five, wonderful opportunity to sharpen our performance skills. In a hunkered down social distancing way, we all have video cameras that work still fine on our phone. We all have a mirror that still works. So this is a great time to be recording ourselves, working on performance tactics. Bill, who speaks is a great comedian. What a wonderful time to fine tune a joke that maybe you've been struggling with, and now we've got some time to practice it and get even better. So the point is, we can use this time to lick our wounds and quiver in the corner in fear, or we can use this time to get better. And what a wonderful opportunity to get better with our stage skills and our performance skills. Number six, create new content and practice it. I can't tell you how many, for years, you're out there, in my case, doing 120, 130 events a year. It's hard to say, okay, let's just sit down in the artist studio, blank canvas, and come up with a brand new keynote or a new format or a new structure. And so this is a good time to do that. And whether that's coming up with an overall brand new keynote or whether it's working on new material that you inject into an existing keynote, again, point number six is it's a good time to go deep on content that can be later on performed live. Number seven, switching away from our business for a second, is practicing gratitude. Right now we're in times where we can feel like victims. We can feel overwhelmed and fearful. But the best antidote to fear and anger and hatred and all those horrible things is gratitude. And you know what? It sucks. But I heard someone earlier saying, you know what? Our grandparents were sent into combat. We're sent to sit on our couch for a couple weeks. So there are a lot of things that we can be grateful for in this time. We can be grateful that we are in the business of sharing ideas and helping people. We can be grateful for hopefully the health that most of us in our family currently has, the resources that we have to weather this storm. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not being glib about it at all. But certainly there's a lot of things to be grateful for, even in times of trouble. Number eight, unrelated to keynote business, but what a wonderful time to get fit. The gym is closed, but all of us, if you Google 7-minute workout, you can find killer workouts on YouTube and other places. You can go for long walks as long as you stay away from people. It's a great time to, instead of just, using comfort food and gaining 15 pounds and feeling like shit after this storm clears, why not use the opportunity to do 100 push-ups a day? And you say, I never had time to eat right. Well, now we do. And again, I'm not being preachy about this. We all have our own health and fitness goals, but whatever your goal is, hey, what a wonderful opportunity to plus it up 10%. Now that we have extra time, let's again use it productively instead of just blowing it on trash TV or something. Number 9, this is something that we're doing right now. Again, we had planned on doing before, but using extra time, is doing a brand relaunch. Either an overhaul to your brand, like in our case, we're re-examining the visual cues on the website, we're redoing the video, we're rewriting a lot of copy, even things down to one-pagers or bureau proposals and such. We're using it as an opportunity to do a refresh because, again, when you have the chance to have some time to actually dig in, again, we think is a great opportunity to do it. And then the last thing I'll say, point number 10 is just recharging. Again, we go so hard, we're running so fast. When do we really ever get a chance to recharge the batteries? And maybe that's, just spending some time reading a book to your kid or having a glass of wine with a loved one. But, this is the time when we can really recharge so that when the clouds clear, we're rejuvenated, we're energized, we're recharged and ready for action. So I'm just going to repeat my quick little 10-point list. Feel free to ignore any of it you want. It's just coming from a place of love. And I hope that some of these things are ideas that you can embrace to make this time productive instead of a total write-off. So real quick recap. Number 1, go deeper in your domain expertise. Number 2, grow your body of work. Number 3, expand your footprint on social media. Number 4, explore entering a new genre of creative expression. Number 5, sharpening your performance skills. Number 6, creating or practicing new keynote content. Number 7, practicing some gratitude. Number 8, getting fit. Number 9, relaunching your brand. And number 10, simply to recharge. So those are my thoughts. That's what I'm going to try to do the best I can during these unprecedented and somewhat surreal times. I hope those tips are helpful to you. I hope those are things that you can embrace. And with that, I just thought I would open it up to some discussion. I see we've got some chat questions coming in here. And if you have a question, feel free to unmute and let me know.
Josh, I got a question for you. Appreciate you doing this and sharing all your info. My question is, I was in the middle of contract negotiations, or essentially had verbal commitments from 5 or 6 of my first paid gigs when all this stuff hit. I'm kind of scrambling, trying to figure out what to do here to get income coming in the door. Would you suggest, I'm assuming you guys are not doing a whole lot of outreach anymore, but for somebody in my position, what would you suggest doing to keep the doors open and keep this thing going?
Yeah, Mike, thank you for that question. So there's a couple thoughts. One is, what do you do with those deals, for the longer term benefit of your business? And the second one is, what do you do for near-term cash flow needs? For the longer business, what I would do is I'd keep in really close contact with those clients in a non-salesy way. I think, and we've said this, among our team a lot over the last few days, that it would be tone deaf to be doing a bunch of prospecting and sales related activity. I think the best thing you can do, back to the quote earlier, that helping is the new selling, be in touch with those folks and, not like, hey, when are you going to hire me again? But like, hey, are you okay? Can I help you in these times? Maybe you've got some subject matter expertise that could be helpful to them. And I think that the more you can be a servant, a leader to them, and continue to nurture that relationship, the better likelihood that those deals will convert in the future. In the near term, I think all of us have different near-term needs. One thing, and I see Kian just typed this in here, if you have a small business, you can apply for an emergency SBA loan. It's disasterloan.sba.gov/ELA, and that's in the chat box there. You may be able to re-engage with an existing customer or client in some manner. So maybe there's a short-term project. Funny enough, I've had a couple 3RC folks reach out to us and saying, hey, in the downtime, could you help me work on a new speech? And so that's kind of a win-win. We're doing what we love, and we're earning a little bit of revenue in the meantime, and we're helping some of our family at the same time. So that would be the other thing. I think just getting scrappy in the near term and trying to, as best you can, play the long game. The only thing I would suggest avoiding is coming across as salesy, if at all possible, in the short time, because it could backfire.
Yeah. So a follow-up question to that is, in every keynote that I give, I do anywhere between a 5 to 8 minute meditation, and there's different ones that are incorporated in it. I thought about going to pretty much everybody that I've been in contact with, whether or not I booked something with them or not, and offering to do something virtually for their company. My concern with that is getting positioned as a corporate, doing an expanded version of it. Obviously, I wouldn't do 5 minutes. I'd do an expanded version of it, but getting positioned as a corporate meditation teacher, which they're driving all over the place in LA, getting paid $150 to go teach meditation versus being on stage for 10.
Yeah, I think if you are, I would worry less about that. I mean, I think if the meditation techniques are part of your overall brand message. So I'm not an expert in that field, but let's just say I was doing it. My message is on innovation. I would say, hey, in these troubling times, here's a technique that I use all the time to drive innovation. But in this case, you can use to fight back in these current circumstances. So as long as you peg the offering to your broader message, your broader kind of brand positioning, I think you're fine. It's just, again, as long as it's coming off as a legitimate, genuine, authentic act of service, I think you're going to be okay. I don't think you undermine your brand.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Josh.
Excellent. What other questions can I answer for our family here?
Well, I have a question. And it's similar to what I posted, and I won't get all into it, but I was really making strides in this documentary, which was huge things, and it's on pause. It's not stopped, but it's on pause right now. But so I had just within the last month finished my speaking reel and started reaching out to people, and I like what you said about reaching out to see if they need help, like not selling to them. I think that was a great idea. But just to expand a little bit more on that, I'm just wondering, like, one of my plans was to like reach out to like speaking bureaus and things like that. But it seems to me that they're all so busy dealing with the people that they already have. So I guess I'm just a little confused as to, just because I'm starting out in my speaking business, and everyone, I've had like 40 speeches, which isn't a ton, but it's not none, but everyone has found me. And so I'm kind of at a loss as to how to find them. And then this kind of just like made it even harder.
Yeah, I appreciate, Jamie, you sharing that, and you're exactly right. Here's what I would say. I think this is a wonderful time to nurture existing relationships. So if you go back to some of those 40 people and say, hey, I know you're in a tough spot, here's some things that I was able to use resilience in my life, may be helpful to you. Wonderful. I think at least right now in this acute period, it's probably not the right time to reach out to new relationships. So I wouldn't call a speaker bureau right now and saying, hey, let me tell you all about me. They're dealing with a complete, sorry about the term, but like a shit show on their end, because they've got cancellations left and right. They're worried about feeding their family. Like it's just sort of would be a not ideal time to make your first impression. So what I would do if I were you, respectfully, is just wait it out at least for a few weeks. I mean, even once we turn the corner, people are going to be able to open up to have the headspace to explore new things. I think right now people are just so focused on the current stuff that it wouldn't be as in the best taste to do so. So I would just say, once we turn the corner, it's the time to make those outreaches to new people. But right now is the time to add a lot of service and love to those that you already are in contact with.
Josh, it's Urs. I love what you just said, and I think that should be number 11. I literally went down the list of 150 former executive coaching clients, some of whom I haven't talked to in 4 years, and all I did is reach out and how are you doing, and check in with them on a personal level. And the few bureau contacts I have, I did exactly the same thing. No agenda other than checking in, are you okay? And that's it.
I think that's beautiful, man. Because first of all, you're doing it from a genuine place. Like, you're not obviously doing it in a manipulative or gaming type manner, but because you're doing that, they know that you care about them and you got their back, and you're being legitimate in your help and service, and that will pay business dividends in the years to come. And I think you're doing it for the right reason. So that's awesome.
Hey Josh, it's Sunil Gupta. I wanted to thank you first of all for pulling this together. Second of all, question about just serving the overall community. There's so many people out there that I think right now could probably benefit from a lot of the things that people on this call understand and know and have learned. Besides putting that out into the social universe, are there organizations or things you come across where we think we might be able to share some of this stuff to people who need it?
It's an excellent question. I haven't thought about it that way, and it's probably different for each of us. But if there's an organization that is struggling in these current times where any one of our thought leadership could help them, I mean, again, back to the gratitude point, what a wonderful gift to be able to give to others and serve the world. And so, for example, and this is a stretch, Sunil, but like if there's an organization that's trying to get people to take shelter, and people are ignoring they're going out to the bar still or whatever, and you help them get their message to become more backable, that in theory could save lives. So the point is that if any one of us can take our domain expertise and apply it to helping this crisis, boy, I think it's going to earn some good karma points at the very least, and if and possibly even more.
On that note, Josh, if our topic is on topic and relatable to what's happening right now, how often should we reference the coronavirus and what's happening, or should we not reference it at all? If we are putting out a podcast or blogs or daily videos, what's the right and the wrong level of not wanting to be seen to leverage the problem?
Yeah, great question, Ryan. And you're such a nice person. I don't think you'd run this risk. I think where you cross the line is when it looks like you're using a situation to take advantage of it. We read stories about people who would buy hand sanitizer and selling it for $100 that they bought it for $1. So that's obviously an example of exploiting and taking advantage of a negative situation. Obviously, you're not going to do that. If you are saying, listen, I went through some incredibly difficult times, came out stronger on the other end of it, which by the way is 100% true, and that's exactly who you are. So it's authentic. And now you're saying, I want to use this teaching to help people in our community and businesses get through these tough times. I think that's totally appropriate. I don't think you should back off of referencing it as long as it's coming from the right place. And you have such good judgment. You'll know when that line is. So I think in your case, it's totally appropriate because listen, it almost be weird not to reference it. As long as you're not doing it in a way that's self-serving, as long as you are doing it in a way that is of service to others, I think you're fine.
Josh, can you talk a little bit about, so we've had some speaking engagements get moved to be virtual. Is there advice you have about things that you should be doing differently when you're doing a virtual keynote as opposed to in person?
Sure. I've done a bunch of them, and it is tough. Even this one right now. I mean, it would be better if we were all in the same, not germ-wise, but it would be more fun if we were all hanging out together. So you do lose something. I think it's important to do your best to be as present as possible. Let ideas sit. It's a little different than if you're talking on the phone, and make sure that you have any visuals. It's very different if you're in a live event and your slide deck is on a 90-foot screen. And remote, some people will be using their phones. So I think you also got to take a look at the visual content to make sure that it can scale to people on the go. I'm actually going to kick that question. It was such a good question, and I'm not a true expert in that personally, but maybe Shep or others, John Foley or others that are experienced speakers on the call might want to answer that too in terms of their best practices for virtual presentations.
Yeah, happy to share. We've got two game plans on the virtual, and one is more of the Zoom call like we're having here. But the other offering that we're going to do is actually go into studio and, not a big fancy thing, but have a nice backdrop and be able to project where you're actually standing up, you're speaking, your energy, you're delivering what we all do as best you can, just no live audience out there. You can incorporate the videos, you incorporate the slides. We know that interactive Q&A like this. So that's one game plan on the virtual, is to actually give a richer experience than a Zoom. Here's what we're not sure of, though, everybody, is I'm not sure if how much demand is going to be there for the virtual. And so what we're doing as a company is, yes, we're looking at it. We're going to answer the bureau partners, their requests. We're going to position that, yes, we're capable of doing this and show just like we would with the real keynote that we have done it in a short clip. And then we're wait and see. and see if that's really something that our industry and our clients want. I think more importantly, and Josh, we talked about this, is really looking at how to hone your current message and position that for the future, right? Looking at how to, how do we help our partners who are more holds and whatnot. And I love the idea that we talked about going back to our clients, right? The ones that we've already served, and just be there of service to them. Not necessarily pitching a new product or anything like that, but be there. So I just had a quick thought that, I'm going to do a short little video and send it to my clients for free, of course, that says, just remind your people about glad to be here, being grateful. So something like that. I think giving back is the way we're approaching right now.
Yep. Very good. I had both my microphone on mute and the Zoom, so I couldn't figure out why can't he hear me? But you can hear me now, yes?
Yes.
Great. So obviously we're experiencing some of the same issues you are with the cancellations and postponements. One of the things we're offering to do for our clients is we know that they are completely stressed out over the idea of momentum, networking connections they have with their customers and clients. So I am offering, they're all saying we're going to use you, we're setting dates in the future, but why not on the day or around the date that they were supposed to do it? Let's give them something virtual. And there's a couple of ideas. Number one, I have something they can do in advance and use as I call it the reverse podcast. We manage it on our end so that we use our Zoom technology to create a podcast that's however long they want to make it. I suggest 15 to 20 minutes at the most. And I let them interview me about the things they were hoping to hear from me on the day that I was supposed to speak. So they can either release that on the day of or send it out ahead of time, just saying, hey, you can't see them in person until whatever the new date is, but we interviewed them. One of the really cool ideas I had, and I know we don't all have access to this, but I have a really great studio that I work with to do this TV show I have on Amazon Prime, and it's a total set. And I have suggested to the clients, because they're again worried about losing momentum with their customers and the connections they're making with their live meetings, that maybe we create a talk show format that it's ongoing. It's once a month, once a quarter, and we create the show for them. It's video format, very, very well done. And you know what? We charge for it. There's no, we're not going to lose an event because it cancels because of a date or anything else, but it's just an opportunity to use that technology. Finally, number three, if you're not already involved with GenieCast, it is, they are really working hard to exploit their technology. GenieCast, GenieCast.com. There is no charge to become one of their experts. And the idea is there's now it's like walking into a bookstore, but instead it's speakers and experts and even celebrities that they can choose from, that they can do interactive meetings. And they're using Zoom technology as their back end. So those are just a few thoughts.
Awesome, Chuck. Thank you so much. One note to everybody here, I'm just kind of scanning through. There's a bunch of comments in the chat box, and some of those are really good. Like there's some about, here's an SBA loan guru website. I see someone mentioned that Vin Gang has a really good thing about how to do a virtual page. So we will copy and paste those and send them out to everybody. But if you want, before we hang up, you may want to just check it out because there's some very good links. There's someone just saying, there's something similar to GenieCast called Stage It, for example. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. What other questions are on your mind?
Josh, I'm curious, given just obviously this is so unprecedented, and there's been talk off and on, I've heard over the years, about taking keynotes, virtual meetings, conferences, having virtual speakers. And I know that in the past, when things like this have happened, industries have kind of reset. And one thing that comes to mind is weddings and wedding planners. And I'd heard that back in 2008-9, when the crisis happened, there was a huge reset in the wedding marketplace where people really reduced their costs from spending 50 grand on it to 10 grand, et cetera. What's your thought about any long lasting effects or ramifications of what's happening, the sheltering, people maybe starting to do virtual? And do you see that as maybe something that's going to change this industry for the long term or not? What are your thoughts on that? Thank you.
Sure. So, to be clear, I don't have all the answers because we are in uncharted territory, but I can share with you my opinion. My opinion is rather optimistic, actually. And I don't think, I think there will be short-term pain, obviously, and I think that may have a little bit of a longer tail than we would hope. But when you say, I was just talking to Foley about this earlier today, what's the reason you do a meeting? So sometimes, yes, it's to learn content, which you technically could learn digitally, although it's still different brain science wise, but that's possible. But a lot of times people do big corporate meeting because they want to entertain clients, or they want to do networking, or they want to bring in their salespeople from around the world to roll out the new plan for the year. And so these are things that are still business critical, and they really don't function as well in a virtual environment. So is it possible that some use cases where it's just corporate learning gets translated to digital only? Yeah, that's possible. But I think the fundamental bones of this industry are centered around live events, that even in a digital age, there's still something important about being present. And especially because when you think about our role as a keynote speaker, it's kind of like part entertainer and part teacher. I think those things really marry up much better in person than not. So I think there will be some backlash, but I really do think that our industry will weather the storm.
Josh, this is Nina. If I can chime in on that, I think Julia has been to our One Place conference. So I've spent the last 3 days working with my former employer on how do we take their conference and put it out there virtually. And we recorded, I put some stuff on my Facebook and my Instagram page. You can see we recorded all there sort of in a studio setting for the internal folks. But the conversation became, let's do this in the future. Let's record all our internal folks because it took the pressure off of them because they're not performers. And let's just hire speakers, entertain people in the future. Like they're already starting to rethink it. So it was great for me to hear now that I'm in this world, but it should be encouraging to all of you too. I think that when you go to those conferences, you have a lot of people who speak at them who are from those companies who aren't speakers, who really have to spend a lot of time and energy figuring out how to stand on that stage. They were all saying, I worked with all of our key executives and our CEO. They were saying, oh my gosh, can we always do my part this way and then just hire big speakers when we do this and get all our people together? So a little encouraging there. I think that I had the same concerns I think that Julia did, but I think we're still in safe territory.
Yeah, again, I can't predict the future perfectly, but my personal feeling is that the next 90 days are going to suck and be barren. The next 6 months are going to accelerate gradually back into a norm. But the longer term, I'm very optimistic, and I think there's plenty of opportunity for all of us in this business. I feel that it's just as strong as I ever have.
I have one more question, I guess, relative to the speakers bureaus and meeting planners. I actually know a couple of people who own these meeting planning companies, and they are really struggling. In fact, they're looking to say, we don't even know if we're going to be able to stay in business. Do you have any ideas or suggestions in that whole realm of gratitude, which I absolutely agree with, and the authentic genuineness of, can you reach out? Can you help? Any thoughts or suggestions about that, given that, they're struggling just like everyone else? So your thoughts on that would be helpful. Thank you.
I think it's great. I mean, especially if it's around your area of expertise. So I know Gretchen March, who's on the phone, helps people with anxiety, from a clinical perspective, and I know there's a lot of people suffering right now with this challenge. And so for her to reach out proactively, I think would make a ton of sense in her domain, and you in the same. So I think it's great as long as you're doing it, as we talked with Ryan earlier, from a good place, one of service, not one of being selfish. I think it's good. Cool. Let me see, get a couple other questions here. Oh, one question that's been asked is, what pricing strategies do you think would make sense for a virtual presentation? We've been seeing this benchmark, I was just talking again earlier with Foley about this, of sort of between 1/3 and 1/2 of your fee if you're doing a remote presentation. So if someone says, hey, we're going to hire you for the keynote, it was going to be 20 grand, how much will you charge me for if you do it virtually? Use your judgment, of course, but the benchmark that we're seeing is between 1/3 and 1/2 of your normal keynote fee. And it was a very tactical question, but I just want to make sure we addressed it. Okay, the other thing I would just say is that, really think deeply about your message and how it could be applied in the post-apocalyptic horror film movie that we're all living right now. Again, so I think about innovation and creative problem solving and inventive thinking. And so if it's 6 months from now and some company is dealing with the shakeout of this mess, so hopefully we'll be long past it, but like, how can my message apply to them and help them in their current needs? There are a lot of, I remember right after the Great Recession, we're talking about, hey, how do you bounce back and how do you use creative thinking you can only cut so far. How do you get back into growth mode? And so I think, while we're hopefully all staying in our lane, we're still staying experts in one thing. Then the question is, how do you adapt your core message to the times, to the things that are challenging our customers? So again, I think the subject matter that many of the folks on this call speak about is really well suited for people who are going to be in recovery mode.
Hey, Josh, this is Steve Shapiro. Just a quick thought. I know a lot of people are sort of scrambling around right now, and I've actually been approached with some very interesting partnership opportunities, which I think is maybe one of the things that's coming out of this is everybody's in pain. And so, for example, there's a PR firm that I'm going to be doing some work with, and basically the agreement is they're going to do the work and we're going to defer everything on the back end based on how successful their PR works, where in the past they wouldn't have done that. So, my thought is, and having studied companies that have been successful in weathering storm, they actually doubled down on their investments at this time. Now, I'm not saying we can double down on our financial investments because obviously that's pretty tight right now, but we can certainly double down on our time and get some really creative partnerships. And I think, you and I are both innovation people. I think there's a time for us to really show what we can do and create some new business models, new business partnerships, and some clever arrangements that everybody wins.
What a great thought, Stephen. Thank you for sharing that. That's killer. Right. So let's say that, a PR firm that you maybe couldn't afford to hire, but now maybe they have some downtime that was unexpected. Maybe they want to hire you as a keynote speaker. Maybe you work out a barter deal and everybody wins. So I think you're right, because the times are lean, especially at this moment, you may be able to strike a deal or a partnership or that you couldn't have struck in ordinary times. So I think it's a really smart approach. Okay, this is an interesting question. So this is from our buddy Dave Carroll. After such a long dry spell for speakers that's coming, do you anticipate buyers being like a buyer's market, and will there be a fire sale on speaker fees? Will I foresee dropping my fee at all? And do we have a plan to reestablish fee integrity? I think it's an excellent question. TBD, of course, but I generally think no, and maybe it's just the optimist in me. But I think that, unlike a cup of coffee, where it's more of a commodity offering, because these people, they're bringing their entire body of work and their history to the stage. I hope that that's not the case. I think it's going to be a good test if you had the right fee to begin with. If your fee was sort of overinflated to begin with, you might have a problem. But I'm hoping that we don't get into this situation where meeting planners start really trying to drive fee down. I don't know if anyone else has a different thought. Shep, what was happening after the post recessionary period in 2008? Were people adjusting their fees?
There we go. So here's the way I take a look at things. I'm not going to let this get me down. I anticipated this coronavirus was going to happen in the form of the upcoming recession that I actually had anticipated. And so in 2008, I stayed busy. And the reason was I smiled and dialed. I know earlier today, somebody came on and asked a question. She said she had 40 engagements. How do you find it? The problem we have today is we really have to be, and you already mentioned it, the balance between selling and helping is huge. So I think it's impossible to go out there and make phone call after phone call. Hey, are you going to be looking for a speaker at your meeting later this fall or next spring? But what we can do is we can ramp up all of our content marketing. And if you do content marketing right, that is far less selling and far more value that you create. In 2008, I talked to a speaker, and I won't tell you his name, but his initials are. No, I won't do that either. He had, back then, the fees in 2008 at 20 or 25,000 were considered, Josh Linkner level fees of today. And he had done 120 engagements in the year prior to the recession hitting. And that year he did 4. It's not fishing when fish jump in the boat by themselves. And it took a long time for him to recover. To your point, Josh, on one or two of your top 10 lists, we need to be positioning ourselves today so that we are stronger coming out of this than we were going into it. We have time to create more content. By the way, if you create more content and you're not telling the world about it, you're in a vacuum and you're by yourself. as you're creating the content, if you're writing chapters of a book, release that as content out in the marketplace so that the people can see that this person is out there, alive, doing well, and is creative and innovative and thought leader, whatever the word is, level as ever before.
Well said. In addition to Shep as a shining example of that principle, Stephen Shapiro, who had a question earlier, just did a fabulous job leading up to his recent book launch, which, by the way, everyone should buy the book. It's great. But, he was sort of teasing out content. He was sharing stories in video and written format. Like, we all knew the book was coming, but it wasn't in an obnoxious way at all. It's quite the opposite. It was really in a helpful, cool way. He was playing around with book covers and it was really cool. I think there'll be a case study written on the way that he launched his recent book. So I totally agree with you, Shep. Teasing out content in a thoughtful way is terrific.
By the way, is today a bad day to release a book on Amazon? Jeez.
Is this actually a release day?
Today is the release day. And it's like, we're just doing what we can. We're fulfilling a few orders here and there. But it's like, I've had to pull back on all my blatant promotion.
You know what, Shep? Congratulations on the book launch from our family to yours, man. Think about the long term, not just the short term.
Oh, I know. It doesn't matter. But it's funny and ironic that some of these things happen. I'm just glad I didn't buy the new car last week.
All right. So, good. So another quick question. If you ramp up your social media, how many posts per week? I'm pretty new at social media myself, but my sense is it's less about frequency and it's more about value. Mm-hmm. So if your posts are like self-congratulatory and boastful and look at me, how about 0 of those a week? But if your posts are like Shep's, where they're really adding value and it's great content and they're really, helping the world, there's probably some practical limit, but if it's a good thing, people want more of a good thing.
Yeah, if I could jump in, the tweet is nice, but I think if you just post good value-added content without a real call for action at the end, I think that's the way to handle things more today than in other times.
Yeah. Here's another question that was texted in. The question is, how do you think that this crisis is impacting company culture and the relationships between companies and their employees? And how do you think this will bring opportunity for us to help? It probably is my opinion, again, I'm not an expert here, but is that it depends on the company. So some companies have taken a very paternalistic and positive approach. They say, listen, for safety, we're shutting down our factory or whatever. We're paying everybody full time as if they were working, and it's not your problem. You didn't create the virus, and we're going to take care of you as your company. In those cases, I bet it's going to breed a lot of loyalty and engagement and morale, and it would be very positive. In the cases where it becomes more combative and it's us versus them, where they say, look, these are the layoffs we're doing, and on and on and on. And especially in the cases where they don't see leaders making those sacrifices, that could be much more divisive, and perhaps folks like us could come in and help. And one thing I saw that the CEO of Delta, for example, knowing that their industry is decimated at the moment, said, I'm taking 0 pay for the next 6 months. Symbolic. Is it really going to change their cash position of Delta Airlines? No, but it goes a long way in terms of building the morale of that and supporting his culture. So I think a lot of it is, how do leaders handle it? And I'm sure we're going to see lots of case studies, good and bad, that will be content for us to speak about in the years to come. Any other questions that I could answer? Anything else that's on anyone's mind?
Josh, like Ed Bastian, the CEO of Delta, I believe most of us have decided to take a pay cut for the next 6 months as well. Just saying. Couldn't resist.
I know we're starting to see some good coronavirus humor. I sent Jordan earlier. They're saying that all these people are locked down and there's no business travel and sports. So there's going to be all these 9 months from now. They're going to be the coronials, those baby boomers, but the coronials. And the one I heard today, which I thought was very funny, was that 13 years from now, those are going to be a group called the Quarantines. That was pretty funny. Bada bing.
Hey, Josh.
Yes.
I just wanted to jump on here and say, so to anyone, if you guys are trying to work on your marketing materials, I posted about this on Facebook, but I'm a professional filmmaker as well as a speaker, but right now I'm relying on my filmmaking skills, but I'm very happy to help anyone if you guys are trying to redo your speaking reels, your demo videos. If you just want advice or if you need some help in editing, I have a phenomenal editing team, and that's what we specialize in. So We've got some time on our hands now, and I'm really happy to offer that service out to any speakers that are just looking for some help. So I'll put my contact info in the chat, and you can reach out to me after if you want some help.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I've seen some of your work too. It's terrific. So that's a good thing for people to take advantage of. Awesome.
Thanks.
All
Josh,
right.
could I add a plea?
Sure.
If you don't mind. And this has been a
Oh,
great
I'm so sorry,
discussion.
Dr. Tom. I didn't see that. I wanted to ask you a question. I'm so glad you're here. But go ahead, please.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt then. I will just avoid preachiness, but in my role as a healthcare provider and someone who's on the forced onto the stage regarding everything here, just briefly, please do take this opportunity, as in all frankness and honesty, Josh has, and many of you already may be, to focus in on opportunities to optimize your lifestyle. One thing that will help us as a society is the next time something like this comes through, and it will, the better health we're in, the better we will be able to handle the impact. We already know that we have stressful lifestyles potentially leading to, I don't say good or bad, because as Josh knows, I'm all about the 5% fun zone and so forth, but let's say riskier choices that could put us at risk, whether it's type 2 diabetes risk, hypertension, coronary artery disease, so on, et cetera. These being largely preventable, if I may say that's a center part of what I do and what I speak about, can really help us individually and society-wide. And I would say if there's any one single thing, because that might take months to get into optimal metabolic health in that regard, but is quitting smoking. If that is in any way, shape, or form something you can do under this type of stress, certainly at least set a date and make it a priority. You can represent your topic as well as humanity in general as best you can in that regard.
Tom, thank you so much. And I appreciate you joining today. We don't have a lot of time, but can you give us, like, in 90 seconds, what can we do to best protect ourselves during this crisis? I know the obvious things, wash your hands a lot and such, but any other sort of medical tips that we can do to best be, protecting ourselves and our family in this time?
Well, I think that what you said in terms of the latter, having a father-in-law who's going through chemotherapy, a father with type 2 diabetes, and I could just list them out, is to protect those at risk the most. If there's anyone at the highest priority to protect against this virus and sequester, if you will, it's going to be those over 70 and who have significant chronic disease. As far as ourselves, we have already heard all of the universal precautions that should be applied. But what I hope is that we don't get so scattered that we really forget that our focus must be on those people that are at particularly highest risk. If they are living with you, that's a very tough situation. If you have a grandparent, for instance, that is living with you, it might really require some very out-of-the-box thinking as far as how to protect them in their room, providing them food, making sure you sanitize before you hand anything off, and so forth. But it's really protect your elders. If I only had 90 seconds to summarize the most important thing, and to make sure to take care of yourself and not, as you said, I think you said something about sitting on a couch and eating salty potato chips. Look, I've succumbed to a few chips, okay? This has been a pretty stressful time, but the best that you can, please try to take care of your own metabolic health and protect your elders and those in the highest risk groups as much as possible.
Thank you. Well, very well said. Okay, well, as we wrap up the hour here, I just wanted to say a couple closing thoughts. First of all, as mentioned at the top of the hour, we are living in unscripted, uncharted territory, and I wish I had all the answers, and frankly, I don't think any of us do. But the thing I hope that we can do is rally together as a family. We all participated in boot camp, but I hope it was more than that for you, that this is, your friends and your family, and we're all here to help each other. So on behalf of all of us, anything that we can do to help you, we don't keep score, just email, call, hit us on this Facebook group. We are here to help. We're here to be in your corner and support you in any way we can. Thanks for continuing to use the Facebook group, by the way. Quick plug for that. I think it's been a wonderful source of discussion and ongoing support. And especially in these times when we're isolated socially, that's a place where we can be together as a 3RC family. If you have any other things that you need from, I think I speak for everybody, from any of us, I think we should also not only feel free to reach out to like our team, but to each other. Let's just kind of rally behind each other, and we'll get through this thing, as Shep said, come out stronger on the other end. So with that, I just want to say, please stay healthy. Please take care of your family, your loved ones, the elderly, the most at risk, and we'll hunker down. And hopefully in a few months, we'll be celebrating some real momentum as we come out of this thing stronger than ever. Thanks again, everybody. Stay safe.